755 is real with David O'Brien and Eric O'Flaherty is on the air now.
Hello and welcome back into an all-new edition of 755 is real. Producer Cam here with you, and as most of you loyal listeners know, when I start off the show, it means it is a live room edition of the podcast. David and Eric fielding listener questions in the Athletic app, and as always, some sublime questions from those who joined the live room. If you weren't able to join the live room this time and want notifications when we do host the live rooms, make sure you're following David and Eric on Twitter, at DOBrianATL, at EOF34. Also, make sure you're following us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We try to make posts on there as well, letting you guys know when we're organizing those rooms. In today's show, Rookie of the Year question. Biggest question on a lot of people's minds. Will you pick Spencer Strider or Michael Harris as the NL Rookie of the Year? David and Eric weigh in on that. And also parlaying that into another listener question, which is the better Braves rookie duo? Spencer Strider and Michael Harris, or Freddie Freeman and Craig Kimbrel? And the guys also answer which of those four they would pick as their Rookie of the Year. The guys also dive into the recently announced MLB rule changes. How will the pitch clock, shift ban, etc. affect the game, and will it benefit the game moving forward? There are also many other questions in today's show that we hope you guys listen to and enjoy. And as always, without your guys' support, none of this would be possible. So without further ado, here's David and Eric.
Hey, before we take some calls, and this might spur a few questions, they're going to vote this afternoon. They're doing it right now, actually, on the three big rule changes. There might be some others, but the three significant ones that they're voting on. I wanted to get your opinion on a few of those, on all those. They're the pitch clock, shift restriction, and larger bases. The latter being, I guess, what you would think the most insignificant. Although, when you think about it, them adding a few inches to each base is going to reduce the length between first and second and third by, I think, 4.5 inches. And if you think of all the bang-bang plays, which is basically every stolen base, that could be pretty significant. They said when they did this in the minor leagues that it increased stolen base attempts by over 20%.
Really?
First year. I mean, 4.5 inches is quite a bit on some of those plays. If you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think that change would really do anything, but 20% more stolen bases in the minor leagues is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, attempts, just because, when you break it down, and we're cutting edge on where catchers have come so far with pop time, and you're at the cutting edge on what runners can do and the leads they can get with slide steps. So this might be able to help bring the stolen base back in the game a little bit, because you see the few teams that do it and a few players that do it. It's exciting because it doesn't happen much anymore. So when you got a guy that steals even 30 bases at this point of the season, now it feels like what 100 used to.
Yeah, and that goes back to the whole banning the shift thing. My thing with the shift is I think it does hurt lefties a lot more than righties. So it's a little unfair to have something like that going on in the game that, makes it tougher for one-sided hitter to hit.
Yeah.
They can just fill up right field with guys, and then it's a short throw. But overall, when I look at all these rule changes, I don't see them tipping the scale or making it all of a sudden there's all these extra baseball fans. I think it might improve the quality of the game a little bit, but I think where baseball really needs to focus is getting kids playing the game again with all this.
Right. Like you can do both at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see any of these making a drastic difference.
I like the pitch clock, and I think it can make a drastic difference. When you think about all the time that's wasted, that extra 10 seconds between pitches, that a lot of pitchers, not all pitchers, some pitchers won't even need the pitch clock because they work so fast. But the ones who take 30 seconds between pitches, those guys are going to have to change what they do. And if it takes 10 minutes off a game, 5 minutes off a game, I think that's significant. Just moves. We've just gotten to the point where there's less action and a lot more time between that action. In the era with 3 outcomes, there's not as much happening between the longer spaces, and guys are stepping out and pitchers are stepping off, and shaking off and all that. And I just think that's all that has been a perfect shitstorm on why the game's gotten so long. There's just not as much going on, but between pitches, or in the actual pitch during the actual moments of action.
Right.
So I like it. I don't think it. I don't think it makes it hinders anything at all. The 20 seconds when there are runners on base and 15 seconds when there are no runners on base. I think that's pretty fair and pretty reasonable for a pitcher to be able to adapt to that if he's using more time than that now.
Oh, it's easy. I don't know if, I never had a clock on me when I was pitching, but I mean, you get the ball back, get on the rubber and, put some thought into what you want to throw. And then, catcher puts it down, you throw it. If they don't, you shake to what you want. But there's some of these guys that pace, they walk a half a lap around the mound and then get up and they have like a come set routine,
right.
This whole, it's all eyewash. For me, it's get on the mound and throw the ball. So I mean, as far as watching the game, I guess you made a good point. You can work on a lot of things at the same time, but as far as watching the game, for me, if guys get on the mound and throw the ball, it'll be more enjoyable for sure.
Especially some closers that you think of over the years have made it like every pitch is this drama, They get the ball, stand off the mound, off the rubber for 10 seconds. Get on the mound, look in, stare in, like menacing for 5-10 seconds. Yeah. Half the time the batter has to step out, rightfully so, because they take so long. All that's going to be eliminated by this.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
God, some closers, man. The one guy that strangled that got in the fight with Bryce. Papelbon?
Oh, Papelbon, yeah.
Jesus, he was the epitome of it to me. The game just ground to a halt when he got in there.
Yeah, that Baez guy, I think his last name for the Dodgers too, but they've been putting a clock on him. It's like a minute between pitches sometimes.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that'll be stopped, man. That'll be good. And there's all kinds of rules within that are, that they have to have because otherwise people are going to figure out ways to get around it. So they've thought of seemingly of everything on that pitch clock thing, and it's so much is up to the discretion of the umpires. But the first couple of times that a pitcher gets a ball called against him or a balk, you're gonna see that change. I mean that's gonna have some teeth in it right there. Somebody pointed out Jansen takes a lot of time between pitches. He does. You're right.
Yeah,
he does. And also, I like the part of the rule they can only go twice to first base. You can't do. There ain't going to be any of those 5, half-ass pickoff attempts where you're just trying to keep the guy back, where everybody starts booing and getting antsy. There's not going to be any of that. There's only going to be 2, a limit. Now, if the runner steals bases, it resets. It gets 2 more. But I like that 2 disengagement limit.
I mean, it's going to get tough though if you burn them early, and you got a real burner at first base.
Yeah.
And you're already out of picks. I mean, you're going to have to slide step or you're going to have to hold and try to mess up their timing. But once they know you can't pick over.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's stopping them from leading off like 12 feet after that.
Well, there won't be anything. That's why.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough.
There is I do like the part of the rule where, if you try it again, it's a balk. But unless you pick the guy off, then it's not a balk. So
so if he let off 15 feet, okay, that's what's keeping him from leading off 15 feet.
Oh yeah. That's
if you do pick him off, then it's not a balk. Got you. I was going to say, I mean, that's like what they used to do to Lester.
Right, exactly. They have thought about it all in that regard.
Okay.
So that would be the thing to keep a guy from going that far off. Yeah, you just throw it over it, and as long as you get him, you're fine.
All right. Okay.
But if you don't, it's a balk.
Okay, I got it.
So anyway, and then finally the shift, man. I have come. There's other stuff within it, like the catcher has to be in the catcher's box with 9 seconds left on the timer. The hitter has to have both feet in the batter's box and be alert to the pitcher, otherwise have his eyes on him, ready to get in a stance, a hitting stance as soon as the pitcher goes. Within 8 seconds, the hitter's got to be in there. So it's not just penalizing the pitcher; it's also stopping those guys who step out of the box every pitch, readjust their batting gloves, look at the third base coach, think about existentialism and everything, and then get back in. It's going to stop all that.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with any of it. I mean, I worked fast my whole career. Maybe that's why it doesn't bother me. But I mean, there's not that much to do. Get the ball, get on the mound, get a sign, and throw it again. It's not that complicated.
I know fielders are going to love it, whether they would ever play or not. They hate when a pitcher, takes forever.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if they take forever, they do their whole routine, and then they pick over, and then they do it 2 more times, and then they're 2-0.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any action in like a minute 45, not even a swing or a foul ball, and they're just standing there on their heels. It's brutal. Fielders hate that. They love quick action.
And then finally, the biggest one probably of all is the shift. I mean, I have come 180 degrees on this, man. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was in the camp that said you've never prevented a manager from positioning his players where he wanted to position them in 130 years of baseball or whatever it's been. Why start now? Well, that's irrelevant because the game has completely changed with analytics, with scientific placement of fielders exactly where they need to be. And as a result, we're seeing legitimate guys are taught their whole careers to hit the ball hard, not worry about where it goes. You can't control that after it leaves the bat. Well, that's fine and dandy, but if the analytics are positioning guys exactly where you hit it a majority of the time, you're going to be punished for hitting the ball hard, the way you've been trained to do it. Because unless you can figure a way to aim the ball, so I've come completely around on this, and I'm for this because I think this is going to get back to being the game that we've loved rather than changing the game. I don't think it's changing the game. I think the shifts have changed the game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the shifts are what led to everybody trying to hit the ball in the air anyway.
Yeah.
In the first place was if I hit the ball hard to the right side and there's 4 guys over there, what are my odds of getting a knock? So hitters shifted the idea to, all right, well, we're just going to drive the ball in the air. That's our best chance to get on base. And that's where all the launch angle discourse and everything came from in the first place was hitters getting sick of hitting really hard ground balls into the shift.
I mean, Brian McCann, your buddy, man, has had his career really he might have been a Hall of Famer, and he might still be, but I mean, he might have been a legitimate, easy choice for Hall of Fame if the shifts had not, changed the second half of his career so much.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think it hurts lefties more because you can play so many guys out so much deeper into the outfield,
especially slow lefties.
Yep, slow lefties, and it's a short throw still relatively for the second baseman or shortstop, whoever goes out there. But early on in my career, the hits you gave up to lefties were top spin, really hard hit singles. They're ground balls that almost pick up speed because of all that spin they put on them, and they just snuck through. They don't do a ton of damage, but you lose 30 of those a year as a hitter. I mean, that's killing your average.
Yeah, I mean, the shift probably took 50 points off without exaggerating. B-Max, look at his stats, his batting average in his first 5, 6, 7 years compared to the second half of his career. I mean, that was the biggest reason. It wasn't any other reason. He's getting older, but he was still hitting the ball where he used to hit it.
Well, then now you're changing your swing and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you because you don't understand the math of, no, you're still hitting 285. It's just, 1 out of 4 of your hits are getting taken away now.
Yeah, and you can't just say bunt it and beat the shift because most guys are incapable of doing that. Not because they haven't bunted in so long, which they haven't. They're not taught to bunt anymore. They don't work on it all year. They get it in spring training and then barely at all during the year, most teams. But you can't just lay down a bunt to the left side against a guy throwing 98-mile-an-hour sinkers, and 101 fastballs and change-ups as hard as fastballs used to be. It's just different. You can't do that anymore. These sliders, these just devastating sliders, these wipeout sliders, you got no chance. So it's just different bunting today than it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, and as far as pitching goes, they pitch to the way they're playing you. It's not like they shift you to pull and then just throw you sinkers away.
Yeah.
They're not doing you the favor of something that you can stay inside and just flip on the ground the other way. They're pounding you in with cutters making their pitch. And the only thing you can do with that, I mean, you could maybe get lucky and flare one the other way up in the air, but for the most part, these teams are not. I mean, this isn't like they're not just looking at a lefty and saying, "Oh, he pulls the ball a lot. Let's just throw everybody over there and then just throw shit all over the place." Like, it's very scientific how they're approaching these hitters now and getting them to hit into the defense that they've programmed.
Yeah, try bunting a 95-mile-an-hour cutter.
Yeah,
you might get killed. So I like it. It's going to hurt the Braves, but it's going to hurt every team that has become really adept and at the shift, because the Braves are probably, they've really gotten good at it in the last few years because with their heavy emphasis on analytics, they've become really good at positioning guys. But I mean, how many times has there been a line drive up the middle right to Dansby standing behind second base? I mean, they are great with the placement. And you're not going to see Austin Riley sprinting over from third base to shallow right field anymore.
Nope.
With two strikes and an at bat.
They could still, I mean, you're still going to be able to throw that shortstop right next to second base, just not on the other side of it, right?
Yeah, he could still be there, and Dansby will be, and still be able to get to a lot of those balls, most of the ones, but not standing behind second base like they have to. They got to be clearly on the side of the base, two fielders, and they can't be standing out in the outfield either.
So they can't even have a foot in the grass.
You got to be two fielders in front of the edge of the outfield grass, two fielders on each side of second base on the dirt.
Oh, wow. That's going to be
minimum.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more just hard hit ground balls sneaking through.
Oh yeah, minimum. You could bring an outfielder to the dirt and have 5 infielders if you want.
Yep.
But you can't do
I think that could be good for the pace of play too, is if guys could get rewarded, because most of the swings and misses you see are that top of the zone fastball that everybody's chasing, but they have to look up in the zone because they got to lift it now. They're laying off the pitches down in the zone, or at least trying to lift balls down the zone. Nobody's happy with a hard hit ground ball because like 9 out of 10 times now you're out.
Yeah. And so the team has to designate 2 fielders that have to be used on either side of the base, and they can't swap during the game too unless there's like an injury or something, or substitution for one of those infielders. So
interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, and then again, so much is left up to the umpire to decide, whether they were in compliance with the shift, and teams can challenge whether the shift was in, whether the other team was in compliance with the shift. Like, did a guy move before the pitch was thrown where he wasn't clearly on, the side of the left or right side of the second base or something, or whether they were on the dirt, that kind of thing.
I mean, you see guys timing their sprint to the position that the analytics want them in. That'd be pretty funny to watch.
Yeah, and there's going to be some guys that sprint right out to the outfield right when the pitch is thrown.
Yeah.
From second base out to the shallow right, I would think. It's going to be interesting. But then the umpires have discretion to penalize the fielding team with a ball if the umpire detects players attempting to circumvent the rules. How about a pitcher, man? How pissed you going to be especially some pitchers that didn't like the shift, to begin with. I don't know, many of them don't like it anymore, but they didn't used to back in the day. But now it's going to be they don't like when guys are moving as soon as the ball's thrown. They're like, just stand there, you idiot! You cost me a ball.
Or even if you see a guy trying to run into this position that he's supposed to be in, that the numbers say, and the ball gets hit right where he was.
Yeah. So anyway. It's a lot of major stuff. I mean, people wanted stuff done. They're finally getting around to doing it, and that's so they can't complain about them not doing anything to try to speed up the game and cause more action. And I'm for it. I'm for anything that's going to get base stealing back in the game. I love base stealing, but especially if you could just shave 10 minutes off a game, I think it would be pretty important, because it's going to make it feel like it's moving faster when there's less time between pitches. That's what people don't like, especially younger generation likes more action.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's probably the best one, is just getting pitchers on the ball, throwing them, on the mound, throwing the ball, because
and getting hitters in the damn box, man.
Yeah, just let's go.
All right, let's open this up for questions.
All right, let's see who we got.
Do you see Matzik at risk of being on the playoff roster? I see that one pop up. No. He's on the playoff roster. Why wouldn't he be?
Robert G.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
Good.
I've seen EY working with Vaughn Grissom in left field. I know we have Ozuna out there now. I know you're kind of closer to all this stuff than we are. So have they been impressed with what he's done out there, Grissom-wise, like taking fielding practice, or is it kind of a experiment that maybe you have to take on the offseason?
No, I think we're going to see him out there. I mean, his bat is too good to take out of the lineup. They're not going to send him to AAA. I mean, they're not going to bench him. He's too good a hitter right now. Now, maybe teams adjust eventually, but he's been up here a month now, and he's still doing – he had 4 hits the other day. He could have had 5. So this kid's for real, and they'd be stupid to take his bat out of the lineup. I mean, and right now it's just 4 games and a rehab assignment, but I don't think you can expect Ozzie just to step back in the lineup and be himself, big peak Ozzie. I mean, he hadn't even hit his stride this year before he got hurt. So it's kind of silly to think he's going to take months off, step back in the lineup and be his old self pre-2022, be all-star Ozzie. So, and they're not going to play sentimental favorites and all that. They got Ozzie for the long term. That doesn't mean they have to play him every day down the stretch and in the playoffs this year. I mean, I keep reminding myself of Austin Riley the year he came up as a rookie. Now, he was a rookie, granted, and he was on fire his first 25 games, then hit the big slump, then hurt his knee, then came back, and he had like 3 weeks to show he was ready for the postseason roster, and he didn't impress him enough. They left him off the roster. I know Ozzie is a multiple 2-time All-Star. It's a different story, but my point being, they're going to take the best players. Now, Ozzie can't just expect to step back in the lineup and play every day if he's not performing, and you just have this guy sit on the bench. And right now, Ozuna is starting to show signs of really contributing again. So, I don't know. It seems like a reasonable expectation would be Ozuna more at DH and Grissom some in left field, because I think Grissom is probably as good or better than Ozuna without even playing in left field, just working out there a little. He's that good an athlete with so much better arm than Ozuna. But the two of them could be DH quite a bit. And I know that Contreras has hit really well as a DH, but something's got to give, and you're going to have to keep Grissom in the lineups because he does so much more for you than just, he's a hitter, he's a base runner, he scores a lot of runs. I mean, he's got great speed. And he can probably be an average left fielder right off the bat, as he's just such a good athlete. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. There's still a month for this to work this stuff out. There's no rush to get Ozzie back from AAA, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking with it is, you got to get Ozzie's upside a chance to show up. But at the same time, when you got a good thing going, you don't want to mess with it. And it's funny, a lot of these times, if whoever was filling in at second base was hitting $120,
yeah,
you see that player rush back a lot faster. But
yeah, we'd see Ozzie already.
In this situation, I'm not saying the team doesn't need Ozzie right now, but they got a good thing going. They got a guy filling in well, so they can afford at least to wait until he gets hot and wait until he looks right, until it forces their hand. But these situations are tough because you don't want to piss a guy off. You don't want to bring Ozzie up and put him on the bench, but at the same time, the way Grissom's been playing, you have to keep him in the lineup. That's priority number one. Winning has to be priority number one. You can mix him in left field and get him and Ozzie in games at the same times and then kind of make a decision. But, I mean, if Grissom keeps playing like this, he's got to be starting in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you miss Ozzie's energy and all that. Well, Grissom provides that too. I mean, That's the thing is this is a dynamic player that brings so much to your team, at least so far. I mean, maybe teams will make an adjustment. They haven't yet. I mean, he's for real, and he gives you so much energy-wise and all that too. It's so it's got I tell you what, it's a really good problem to have because compared to the opposite.
Yep. Jeremy P.
Hey.
What's up, Jeremy?
Hey guys.
What's up?
Speaking of dynamic rookies, with this race between Harris and Strider, Eric, I don't know if you've ever said who you would have as your Rookie of the Year. I know Dave has said that he would go with Harris. Just wanted to revisit that and see if that's how you guys feel. I know that a lot of guys have them flip-flops just because of what Strider's been doing. He's been really impressive lately. So, like I said, just want to revisit that, see if you still have Harris on top and what you would have, Eric.
I still have Harris. If you're asking me, I still have Harris, but it's closer. It's closer than it was 3 weeks ago. I mean, when you have 16 strikeouts in 8 innings, it gets attention. And it's similar, and I think Eric has said the same thing, but it's similar to how I view the MVP race. Most years, I'm not going to put a pitcher in the top of the MVP ballot unless there's a year where there's not a guy that clearly has an incredible year offensively, and there is a pitcher that goes beyond just a great season and has, like some of the years that Pedro Martinez had, or the year that DeGrom had, where it changes the whole team a lot. But otherwise, I'm going with the everyday position guy over the pitcher. That's why they have a Cy Young award. Unfortunately, they don't have a Pitcher of the Year award for Rookie Pitcher of the Year award. So you got to do that in your own mind, which is more important. And to me, I'm going to go with the position player, all things being equal, over the pitcher. But Strider obviously is making that more difficult, and some guys will vote for him. I think it'll be closer. I think Harris would still win right now, but it's not going to be near. I thought 3 or 4 weeks ago, I thought it would be close to unanimous. I don't think it'll be close to unanimous if the pace continues as it is right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Strider wound up, going into the 8th inning 2 or 3 more times this year with 15 punches, I'd have to at least, consider it. But for me, the guy that's on the field every single day, every inning of the game, is always going to have the upper hand. In these, and you're right, you got to look at it the same way you look at MVP. I think Strider's just, kind of the thing is that Strider's kind of doing some stuff you've never seen before, at least out of a starting pitcher, rookie. I mean, it's pretty rare, but Harris has had some huge hits, and it's been more just consistent throughout the entire
Gold Glove
time.
defense.
Gold Glove defense. He's come up with big knocks. I mean, if you look at, you can do the same thing for both of them. If you look at either one of them, when Strider got moved into rotation or when Harris got called up, the team play has changed drastically. But
it happened like simultaneously.
Yep. But for me, you got it. For me, I always go with the guy that's playing every day, even though, you got to tip your hat to Strider and say he's doing everything possible he can to kind of make me change that stance.
I will say this. If Harris was a mediocre to bad defensive player and was doing what he's doing offensively, I would say Strider.
Yep.
But Harris is doing it on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Both sides of the ball.
For 9 innings.
Every inning of every game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't trust the defensive metrics enough to say that, it's translating to WAR where he's just barely ahead of Strider on WAR. I think you got to watch the guy play and really think about it, but there's a lot of balls he catches that he makes look easy that I don't know if other center fielders even get to. And the differences that makes for your pitching staff and guys' confidence throughout the season too is something you can't really measure.
Yeah. I definitely think Strider is making it closer than I thought it would be 3 or 4 weeks ago. I mean, he's just been, like Eric said, he's doing historic stuff. I mean, when you're doing historic stuff, it makes people have to pause and consider when you might have you're going to have the highest strikeout rate of any Braves starter ever. That's that rookie or otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm with you on that, but he's definitely making it tough. Jonathan D.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Hey, just a quick pitching strategy question. When you're thinking about lining up the rotation for the postseason, how important is it to alternate guys with different pitching styles?
Eric, you want to take this? I think it could be really important, especially in those games where there's back-to-back games. And it's a really radical difference, going from like a lanky lefty with a great curveball like Freed to a guy that's a unicorn of sorts in Strider, who throws on the right side. He's like 5 inches shorter, throws 101, and has a devastating wipeout slider. I would think that would make it hard on hitters. I really do. But Eric, what do you think?
I've always thought the most important difference would be just the way they're getting their outs. Like if you have a power guy that's really pounding hitters in, and making them cheat and shorten their swing and do certain things. And then you have a guy that's more crafty, bigger, slower curveball, change ups, making them keep their weight back. So if you could kind of shift their weight more than anything and make them change their approach at the dish, I think it can be, really effective. And same thing with righty versus lefty. I don't like teams facing, if you have two lefties on your staff, I'd like to break them up, just so they're not seeing the ball coming from that same side back-to-back days. But I've thought this matters less and less over the years as starters have gone less and less innings.
Right,
A lot of times you're getting two at-bats off the starter, and then you're facing these two relievers. So it's you don't know which relievers they're going to face. It's hard to line up your rotation like that. And I think when this thing was really a thing is when you were expecting starters to go 6, 7, 8 innings, and they might get one at-bat off of a relief pitcher that wasn't the same style as the starter. But now you could face the starter if you're toward the bottom of the order, you might only get one at-bat, maybe two off them. And then you're facing two different relievers, so it's really hard to line it up as these different looks. It's not as easy as it was in the past.
Great point. And also, teams like the Dodgers in the past, not as much this year, have used platoons that have just made that almost irrelevant. They've used so many platoons. But I tell you what, though, it is going to be maybe potentially where you were talking about how they get out. You could potentially miss peak Ian Anderson because of that, because he's so different than the other guys in his delivery, in the way he gets outs and all that. But obviously he's not pitching well enough to be considered for it right now.
Yeah, he's got to be getting outs for it to matter in the first place. He'll figure it out, but he's not there right now.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question.
Definitely. Thanks, guys.
Somebody said, I hope we don't see Strider get fatigued down the stretch. I don't think the rules apply with this guy. And that's because of being around him, talking to everybody who's watched him, who knows what he does to prepare for games, who knows the incredible condition that he's got his body in and what he does to keep it that way with the stretching and the diet. I think this guy's a freak, man, and I don't think he's going to fatigue down the stretch. We see him carry his velo into the seventh, and the other day into the 8th inning. And he's already thrown 20 innings more than he's ever thrown in a season. I just think he's a freak. I don't think the rules apply with this guy.
Well, it's like what we were talking about last week where Kelly was saying, he'd go do his off-season workout and then hit up Chick-fil-A on the way home. When I first got called up to the big leagues, the whole team was in the sauna drinking beers after the game. So you're dehydrating yourself and slamming beers that are dehydrating yourself even more, and then guys would grab ice cream on their way out of the park.
You said that it's just a bad thing.
Well, I know it's awesome. I loved it, but I'm sure Strider's not doing that.
No, he's not doing that.
You really can't compare eras or pitch loads or workloads or all this stuff with the past because guys have never taken care of themselves the way they take care of themselves right now. So we'll see, but I'm kind of with Dave where I think that he's got a really good shot of maintaining his energy throughout however long the season goes.
Yeah, I think with postseason, this is a kid that could go 160, 70 innings and still be what he is right now. I think he could do it. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I just don't think – I haven't seen anything like this guy before. Nothing.
I agree. AG.
Good morning to you guys on the West Coast. I may be overthinking this, but in this age of analytics, does banning the shift or restricting the shift give someone like Dansby, who's such a good defender, an advantage in his contract negotiations, either from his side for leverage or in the Braves, being more desperate to want to keep him?
It could. It could be a consideration when teams look at, hey, we're not going to be able to shift next year. So all these advantages that we've gained by being on the cutting edge of analytics, we're going to have to rely a little bit more on guys who are both instinctive and have great range. And Dansby is one of those guys. So you're not going to be able to kind of hide a mediocre defender with great analytics, great shifting, great positioning.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Especially you're going to want to be athletic at second base because you're not going to have any backup in right center field.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I like that. Yep. Glenn, you there?
Hey, yes, I am. How are you doing, guys?
What's up?
Good. Big fan of the show. Listen, I had a question while I was watching Strider in the last game. Given those two latest performances, which one of them did you guys find more impressive? The struggling against Oakland in that first inning, and then pitching, fighting his way through that rough start, or the 16 strikeout performance that he had against Colorado? And also, Eric, did you ever go through something like that when you started? I mean, I know that you were a reliever, but at any point in your career, either in high school or something like that, or in the minors, did you go through something like that where you had struggles in the first inning and then were able to like get out of that funk and able to pull through?
Well, go ahead, Dave.
I'll give my answer on that first part and let Eric take over. I know this is a popular, my stance would be the unpopular one, because afterwards, a couple of writers and I think Snit agreed. That was even more impressive. That first inning looked so rocky for them to stick around through 6. After that really first inning where he was having trouble finding the zone was even more impressive. Well, I think it was really encouraging, and it's obviously seeing an aspect to him that you'd love to see. But I'm going with 16 strikeouts in 8 innings against a really good hitting Colorado team rather than what he did against an Oakland team that's really not very good. He made Colorado hitters look foolish, and he just completely overwhelmed them. So I'm going to have to go with the edge on the first one. I know I'm in the minority on that probably, but go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, you put it that way. I kind of agree. I think that, like you said, it's a good sign. It's a good sign to be able to, I thought that was the hurdle Kyle Wright had. Anytime if he didn't have it, he didn't have it for the day. And being able to adjust mid-game, figure it out, and find it. Sometimes it's something as small as the mound or, just the feel of the stadium. Something's not right for you and you're a little off. And some guys can lock it in, figure it out, put it past them, and other guys fall apart. I haven't seen – Yep.
You pitched on that mound though. Do you think that there was? Is there something that maybe from your experience that maybe might have bothered him?
No. I'm just throwing random shit out there. For me, I would say that it's a really, really good sign for him to have that appearance, but. It's like his 16 strikeouts I didn't find to be crazy impressive because I'm already crazy impressed with him. It's felt like every start he's made at any minute he could lock in and go on a tear like that, and that just happened to be one that he had it together for the whole start. And then you see in the Oakland start, he had a real rocky first, and then he locked back into that mode that he keeps going back to for the rest of the start. So he's blown me away this year is what I'm trying to say.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Lucas T, what's up?
Hey, Eric and David. Kind of a follow-up a little bit on Jeremy P's question earlier about Strider and Harris. We've talked a lot about the Freeman and Kimbrel year. Which duo would y'all give the vote to for best rookie duo of the Braves? And would Harris still get the vote of all 4 of those?
Wow.
It's hard because you know how Freddie's career turned out.
Yeah. If I'm taking out career, if I'm just going on fresh on rookie year, I'm going with Harrison Strider. As great as Kimbrel was, and as great as Freddie was, I think I'm going to go with Harrison Strider just because, like I said, Harris plays Gold Glove defense. Freddie was not an impact guy on defense that early. I mean, not where he's game changing. And Strider is doing historic stuff, which Kimbrel was pretty close to it. But I'm going to have to go slight edge to them. But I wouldn't be surprised if Eric goes the other way because he's more familiar. He played in that era. So I don't know. What about you, Eric?
I just go starter and center fielder over first base and closer. I think that.
There you go. Good point.
It's really hard for me to pick anything over those two just because of how damn good they were and how their careers turned out. So if you take their careers out of it and just the contributions they had in their rookie year, I think you got to take a starter and a center fielder over first base and closer.
Yep. There you go.
Thanks, Lucas.
But man, most teams never have a duo. would dream of having a rookie duo like that. And the Braves are going to have two in barely over a decade.
Yep. Jeff L.
Jeff I again.
Jeff I.
Hey guys, I missed the first part of this thing, so I apologize if I'm asking something someone's already asked. But did you guys see Kyle, that one inning that Kyle right threw where the ball he wasn't just wild. It was almost like watching somebody with the yips. He threw one behind Tony Kemp. He was spraying the ball all over the place. And Brian Jordan blamed it on the mound. And I heard you mention something about the mound too. But has anyone asked about that or commented about that? It was so strange because he's been so good all year, and it literally looked like he had the yips for an inning.
Pitching's like that, I mean, I had plenty of times where, I was having a good season and I'd come in one day and I knew in my head if the hitters didn't swing, I might walk 5. And there's just times where your timing's off or you've got your arm's a little tired or things just aren't syncing up. And all of a sudden it just gets worse and worse if they stop swinging, Luckily, it seems like, if you go out there with good numbers, hitters are always swinging the bat and trying not to get in trouble against you, and they do you a lot of favors. But, I would just write it off as a random inning that just happened for him, or a random outing where he just didn't have it that day and he battled through it, and give him a pat on the back for battling through it when he didn't have it. Jack B, last one.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
Great.
At this point in the negotiations with Dansby, and I know AA always works like in the dark, and we wouldn't know if something is about to happen. But do you think that there's still a chance that a deal gets done with Dansby before he reaches free agency? And what would your guys' predictions be on how this is going to turn out?
I do think that the deal could get done before he reaches free agency. I do think there's better than a 50-50 chance. I might be in the minority on that, but I really do think there's a better than 50-50 chance. Just because Dansby wants so much to stay here. He's been open about it. I know Freddie was the same way, but Dansby's also hands-on with his agent. There's not going to be a lockout. There's not going to be any time where he's not going to be in communication between the agent and the team if it comes to that. That would be postseason anyway, after the postseason. But Dansby knows what's going on and has made clear to his agent that he wants to be kept abreast at every step. And he's also not going to be a guy that tries to squeeze every dollar out of them. Knows there's some other shortstops hitting the market. Doesn't want to play in California. He's a Southern guy. He loves Atlanta. Hates the taxes in California, but he's really just not a West Coast guy. He loves Atlanta. He's a Southern guy, as he told me. I'm a Southern dude. Played his whole career here. Doesn't want to leave. And I think he puts enough emphasis on where he wants to be. His family's down here, so is his, his parents live real close by and that's where he's from. And he's really comfortable in this clubhouse and around these coaches and Snit. And, and that's going to change over years. It's not going to be the same guys here every year, but he's just really comfortable in the setting. I think that means a lot to him. As for the Braves perspective, Alex is nothing if not smart and shrewd, and he knows that clubhouse chemistry and all that. He took a gamble in a sense that he knew, but he knew Matt Olson pretty well and talked to a lot of people and knew how well he would fit in here, and he has fit in here well. And he also knew Freddie, as much as Freddie had evolved into a leader, they had some other guys on this team that could also step up as leaders, and they have done that. But I think Alex is smart enough to know that you can't just keep lopping off pieces of your culture and expect it to continue, that there has to be some kind of connecting thread. And you have to put some stock into that. And Dansby is that guy. And you're not going to turn that position over to a rookie next year and expect it just to continue. You go from the veteran captain of the unquestioned leader of the infield, the captain of the infield, as Riley says, who Wash trusts to set up the defense. He's come that far that Wash doesn't even have to do it anymore. Dansby does it. So you're going to have to take all that away if you turn it over to a rookie next year in Grissom. So in reality, if they don't re-sign Dansby, they're probably going to have to go out and get a bridge guy for a year before Grissom could take it over. And then decide, have Grissom playing left field or something. Because I don't think you can have a rookie playing that position next year. So, long story short, I think they can get Dansby signed. And if I'm just going to guess, just wild guess, I would think something in the range of 5 years, $200 million might get it done, or 6 years with a little less AAV or maybe an option attached, 5 with a 6-year option, something like that. Just and give or take $20 million in the big picture. But you get what I'm saying. Something around $20 million a year, I think, is probably what he can command in the open market, given how far he's come and how good he is defensively now. On top of being a 25 to 30 home run hitter.
Yeah, thanks for all that, David. And one more thing you didn't even mention is the incentive that Dansby would have, that the infield that he's going to be playing with is going to be
Absolutely. Those guys are set. He loves playing with them, I mean, he's one of those guys that's important to. Some players it's not. They can pick up and go to another team and know they're going to fit in fine and everything's going to be dandy. They're going to be making the absolute most money that they can make, which their agent might want them to do. Dansby's not one of those guys, unless I just have a really bad read on him.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
You think it can still get done, Eric?
I don't know why it wouldn't by now if it was going to get done, but
before free agency, you mean?
I don't know what else there is to see,
right?
Or what, unless it's Grissom that kind of showing up and doing what he's doing has made the Braves feel better about possibly losing him. But
yeah.
I think they can let him go.
I think they wanted to wait once again to see just how far this could go with the revenues and all that. And because they didn't start really talking contract until late again, kind of like they did with Freddie. But I also think that they don't want to make that same mistake. So there's a lot of time to get this done before free agency, unless he's a player who has said, and he doesn't strike me as this. When I've talked to him off the record, he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to go, you know what, I took the risk this far. I'm going to take it to free agency and see what's out there. I haven't got that feel for it, which I would understand, and I wouldn't blame a guy if he did. We've said that ourselves. I wouldn't blame a guy if that's the stance he took, but I don't think he is looking at it that way.
No, but he's still got to play the game and try to get the maximum dollar he can, even
Absolutely.
if he knows he's staying with Atlanta.
Got to get a fair offer.
Can't just be like, well, I want to stay here really bad. And the Braves throw him 6 years at $12 million a year, and he's like, I'll take it. He's still got to play the game whether he wants to or not.
Right.
When you get this close to free agency, all of a sudden you have a ton of leverage of at least being able to put some other offers in the Braves' face and say, hey,
right.
The Dodgers called and they're at 6 years, 140. And, you get to see how do you feel about that. And then you also get to know, how much of a discount you're taking. If you don't get to the point, if you come this far and you don't even listen to any other teams before you decide what deal you want to take with Atlanta, you don't even have a gauge on how big of a discount you're giving him. I mean, if he goes out and finds out some team wants to offer him $30 a year for 5 years, and his best offer from the Braves is like 5 for 110. I mean, I know he wants to stay, but does he want to stay $40 million? That big of a gap. And at least, if you go out and you just kind of float some deals and see what's out there, you can tell how big of a discount you're really taking versus just signing blind with the only organization you've had a chance to negotiate with.
Oh, I absolutely see your point there, and I think it's very valid. On the other hand, how about if you're his agent and you go, you know what, I don't really want to see the difference in the offers that there are for Trey Turner and for my guy, because I think my guy's as good as him, and I don't want there to be a $7 million a year gap between what my guys offered some teams and what Trey Turner's offered. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's if you wind up signing some deal and you Dansby, you sign a deal and you see Trey Turner get double that or something like that, he's not double as good as you. I mean, it's good to have this ability to compare, and that's part of what that's your reward for waiting so long is If the team, I mean, I'm sure they're not offering him anything crazy at this point because they've still got team control and they know he wants to be there. So I think if it was fair, Dansby would have already signed, or if it was what he thought he was worth, he would have already signed. And I think the team's playing their game and he's playing his. So it's tough that it has to play out like this, but this is how it always has to play out. Unless the team comes out with a really fair deal and the guy's like, you know what, this is where I'm going to be, and he takes a small discount. But there's no telling how big that discount is or how fair the offer is until you either go to free agency or just accept that you're happy where you're at and you don't care what's fair.
I guess if there's one encouraging thing for Braves fans, it would be that they've not insulted him with an offer, because if they had, he'd say, I've come this far, I'm going to go to free agency. And the Braves, and I will definitely listen to the Braves, but I'm going to listen to other teams. And he hasn't said that. You know what I mean? If they've just insulted him so far with offers.
Yeah.
There you go. I guess we tried to answer it, but I know we probably didn't. But I don't know that it's answerable at this point.
Right. I agree. All right. That wraps it up for today. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Great questions, man. Appreciate it, everybody.
Good stuff.